What if I told you that the difference between a peaceful life and a violent one isn't as wide as you think? That the line separating a neighbor from a killer or a preacher from a threat is so thin it can snap under the right pressure? And what if the person we'll examine today, a man who built a movement, filled stadiums, and claimed divine purpose, wasn't simply preaching politics, but rehearsing the very steps that lead ordinary people into extraordinary violence? This isn't a story about good versus evil. It's about something far more disturbing. It's about how the processes that make us human can also make us dangerous. Stay with me, because by the end, you'll see how a single rejection in boyhood metastasized into a national crusade, and how the shadow he unleashed eventually devoured him. When someone commits violence, we want to believe they were different from us, defective, born wrong. But decades of behavioral research shattered that illusion. Violent actors don't come from a different species of humanity. They operate with the same psychology we all share, just pushed to its limits. Which brings us to Charlie Kirk. To millions, he was a conservative prodigy, founder of Turning Point USA, a champion of youth activism. To others, he was a manipulator, a propagandist, a false prophet. But underneath both images lay something deeper. A boy's wound that never healed, a shadow that swallowed him whole. Violence isn't a switch, it's a path, a slow erosion of moral restraints. And there are 4 common ways people step onto it. First, justification. Convincing yourself violence serves a higher cause. Kirk was a master of this. Abortion wasn't just wrong, it was worse than the Holocaust. Gun deaths? Worth it for freedom. He made harm sound holy. Second, displacement. Blaming others for your own aggression. He told his followers, "We didn't choose this fight, they forced it on us." In that frame, violence was never his doing, it was theirs. Third, dehumanization. The most dangerous step. Reduce your opponent to an object, a disease, an invader. Kirk's language stripped away humanity. Immigrants as replacements, LGBTQ people as delusional, racial minorities as predators. Once someone isn't human, hurting them feels permissible. Fourth, minimization. Downplaying the harm. January 6 wasn't an insurrection. COVID wasn't deadly. Racism wasn't systemic. If the damage isn't real, then neither is the guilt. The fusion of identity. Here's where it gets even more dangerous. When a person fuses their identity to a group or cause, threats to that cause feel like threats to existence itself. For Kirk, it wasn't politics, it was survival. Attack Trump, attack America, and you attacked him. His personal self vanished into the movement, which meant any blow to the movement justified any response. Jung's shadow. Now peel back another layer. Jung would say Kirk was possessed not by demons, but by his shadow. At 18, he was rejected from West Point. That humiliation froze him in boyhood, the archetype Jung called the pure eternus, the eternal child. Instead of confronting inadequacy, he projected it. Minorities, women, civil rights leaders all became mirrors of his unowned weakness. He declared war on them because he could not face himself. His hostility toward women's autonomy? That was his repressed anima, the feminine within him he feared and despised, cast outward as enemies to control. And his sermons wrapped in divine language? The false prophet archetype, using the sacred not for transcendence but for domination. Warning signs in plain sight. Patterns always emerge before violence. Dehumanizing language, obsessive grievance, theatrics of rehearsal, isolation from opposing views. Kirk's rallies weren't just speeches, they were rituals of escalation, lighting, music, chants, training his audience to merge identity with cause, grievance with righteousness, and outrage with belonging. He wasn't describing the road to violence, he was paving it. Here's the unsettling truth. Kirk wasn't born a monster. He was made by the same psychological processes any of us could fall into: resentment, projection, identity fusion. He took his wound, weaponized it, and built an empire on grievance. But the process that consumed him wasn't unique. It's human, which means it's universal. And then the archetype fulfilled itself. The eternal boy who glorified struggle was struck down mid-sentence while debating mass shootings, killed before thousands. A man who taught others how to project their shadows fell victim to someone else's. The comforting lie is that violent people are evil and we are not. The disturbing truth is that the same pathways live inside all of us. The real question isn't whether you're capable of violence. You are. We all are. The question is, what stops you? What protective factors hold you back? Community, reality checks, self-reflection? Charlie Kirk lacked those guardrails. He chose spectacle over growth, grievance over maturity, persona over individuation, and it destroyed him. His story is not a tale of good versus evil. It's a cautionary tale of human psychology under pressure. And if you see the patterns early enough, justification, displacement, dehumanization, minimization, you don't just understand violence, you can stop it.